Hey everybody, welcome to our January 2022 cold, wet, rainy, and about to turn freezy WEN-Talk here and the Women's Entrepreneur Network. I'm so excited to have you here. I am excited to present our first speaker. This is Carol Pilkington. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And go ahead, you have the stage.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am Carol Pilkington, and I'm a spiritual counselor and teacher. Some would call me a practical mystic. I teach practical tools and skills for everyday life, but it's all based in our being spiritual beings in a human body. I know it sounds like a cliche when we say it all the time, but we are, in my experience, everything, let me just preface everything that I'm about to say. Everything that I'm about to say is based on my own personal direct experience. So it's not a belief to me, and it's not hearsay. Everything I'm saying is from my own experience. And that's all we really have to build a foundation for our own reality. We are all living in our own reality tunnels. So we often take it for granted that people understand, if you will. That word is often overused as well. We understand what another person is saying or going through, but that's impossible. We can only surmise or approximate what another is understanding and what we're receiving, because we're not in that person's body. We're literally not in that person's skin. So there's always an approximation. And when we can recognize that and know that consciously, then we will not assume and take so much for granted of what we hear and see. So I just wanted to preface my talk based on that. What I'm going to talk about today is the importance of completing cycles of action. This is something that changed my life. I used to be somebody that had so much to do and wanting to get a whole bunch of different things done, but I would never complete anything. Now, that just doesn't pertain to getting tasks done or goals and objectives done. It also has to do with talking to people. You know, when we have conversations with people, we want to make sure that we walk away with a clear understanding, as close to an understanding, and I would say duplicating, if you will, what another has said as possible. And what I mean by duplicating is that we take in the information that we receive, we interpret it, we verbally interpret it to the person that has expressed the information to affirm that we understood to the best of our ability what that person has said. And they either confirm or re-explain what they were attempting to say. So that's a completed cycle of action in communication. I'm sure that you've heard the term, the crew that never rests. It's all the voices in our mind that are constantly vying for attention. And that's because we have incomplete cycles of action. We're having conversations in our head with people that we've had in the past or have just had, and they're ongoing past the actual time the conversation ever took place. And that's because there wasn't clarity, there wasn't a completion of the information exchange, and we're mulling it over still. So that's a cycle of action. A cycle has a beginning, middle, and end. And so that's where we're going to start. So there are different types of cycles. There's the communication cycles that I was just talking about. There's the completion of projects and tasks. We have these lists that we make of all the things that we need to get done. And when we don't complete that whole list, we feel incomplete, and they still linger in our minds. We even lose sleep over it. And there's a way to actually complete and feel complete within with everything that we do and say. And then there's the emotional processes that we go through about all of these things. I wish I'd said this. I wish I'd done that. Oh, I shouldn't have done this, and I shouldn't, you know, all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas are all living in our mind. And those are incomplete cycles of action. When we procrastinate and we feel overwhelmed, that's a sign of incomplete cycles of action. We're feeling like for whatever reason, we procrastinate, whether we're afraid of getting something done, we might be even afraid of taking responsibility for something. Once we say something, once we do something, it's out there and we can't take it back. So we have a fear about even doing anything. So that's the procrastination. And so we never start anything. And then there's the confusion and ambiguity of what we should or should not be doing. Sometimes we're given a task to do, an assignment to do, and we walk away thinking that we understand what has been said for us to do, and then we struggle with doing it when all we needed to do was go back and ask for clarification. So there's shame and guilt and all that comes into the equation for not having gone back and gotten clarity when we think we should have understood it to begin with. So that's where a lot of confusion and ambiguity comes in. Lack of focus. When we have so many things that we want to do, but we can't narrow in and zoom in on that one thing that has to be done right there in the very moment. And then there's the confrontation, when we have difficult conversations to have with people, when we need to really have those heart-to-heart talks, and we're running the conversation through our mind about how to approach it, what to say. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So we keep those conversations in the mind, and they don't get out. And it has an effect on our way of being in the world and being with others. So how do we get over these dilemmas? So the second thing that I wanted to talk about was what can impede or block completing a cycle of action? Well, not getting clarification, like I said before. We try and multitask and we don't get anything complete. And then the procrastination, which I've already gone over. And then there's the perfection syndrome. It's not perfect. It won't be done exactly as I have it mocked up in my mind. Nothing's ever going to be absolutely perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Everything in the world, as we are, is perfect in the moment. So it's kind of a paradox, if you will. The perfection is in the moment. Can't be any other way than it is, or else it would be. And then how do we complete cycles of action? It affects every bit of our life when we do not complete cycles of action. Completing cycles of action reduces miscommunication, clears and opens the mind, and it improves our ability to create. We are here to create and be creative, and it breaks up the inertia, and it increases our feeling of accomplishment. I am absolutely positive that there have been moments in your life, hopefully many, that when you've completed something, you've put a period at the end of it and you no longer have to think about it. That is a complete cycle of action. When you can put a period at the end of something and feel absolutely clear that you do not have to think about it again. That opens up the doorway for more space and for us to be able to create more with clarity. It gives us a sense of well-being, inner peace, tranquility. And it also, by the way, quiets the mind. We all want a quiet mind. Well, completing cycles of action is the route to a quieter mind. So what can we do to improve one's ability to complete cycles of action? We have to acknowledge where we are in the moment. This is where I am. I'm not over there. I'm not striving to be over there. I am here. And when we allow ourselves to completely be exactly where we are in any given moment, it keeps us in present time. And it allows us to meet anything that presents itself in the moment to be addressed. Multitasking is a misnomer. There's no way that we can physically multitask. Whenever I am on a project, say I have a project that I want to complete between now and February 10th, just a random date. And there are steps that I need to take in order to accomplish that intention. And with each step and each task that I do, I want to make sure that I've done it fully, wholly, and completely. And within even one task, if something comes up in the moment that I have to put that aside, what I do is I say, I'm done with this for now. This is like a magic statement. It can help you complete cycles of action, no matter where you are in any given project, in any given moment with anything. I am done with this for now. It puts a period at the end of it, and you are free and clear to move on to something else that needs to be addressed. No matter whether it's a phone call that comes up, whether someone comes into your office and says, this needs to be taken care of right now, whatever the case may be, an emergency may come up in the moment. That's what you need to do in the moment. That's what you need to take care of in the moment. So whatever you were doing before that came up, I'm done with this for now. It's priceless. And then intend to be understood. When you're in a conversation with someone, do not ever assume that the words coming out of your mouth are going to be received exactly the way you express them. Sometimes we use jargon in the fields that we might be in, and we expect people to understand what that jargon means, and we don't leave any room for inquiry. So we have to be clear, intend to be clear about what we're saying, intend to be understood to the best of our ability. And when we always have that intention to be understood to the best of our ability, you can't ask for anything more. And if the other person is not asking questions in order to receive the information, that's on them. That's not your responsibility. But your responsibility is only to express and to intend to be understood. And don't take more on than you can handle. Know your limitations. We all have limitations in our life. Do we press those limitations, those boundaries of limitations? Of course. But know where those limits lie and what you may or may not do to press past those boundaries in order to complete a cycle of action. Don't promise more than you can handle. And don't make any assumptions, as I was talking about earlier with regards to our conversations with people. Don't make an assumption that somebody knows what you're saying and your meaning. This accounts for all of the communication problems that we have in the world, I would think. That's my experience. And allow for the unknown. I wrote a Facebook post the other day, and it talked about an uncertainty. We are born into a world of total uncertainty. We don't know who we're born to or what's ahead of us. As we navigate and learn to walk, we're stumbling, falling, and bruising our knees. Now we are either met with panic and worry, or we are met with a smile and joy. And we interpret those reactions and we take them in. And the uncertainty thereafter, we can determine whether it is going to be fearful or whether it's going to be an adventure, whether it's going to be joyful and wondrous, the mystery of life. And that defines oftentimes how we interpret and see the world moving forward. And the last thing I'll say is always ask for help if you don't understand something. We are programmed in this world to be self-sufficient and self-reliant and think that we have to have all the answers right at our fingertips all the time. And that's just not true. We are always learning, and when we're open to always learning, then we can allow ourselves to not know what we don't know. When we allow for that unknowing, then we can ask for help. It's hubris not to ask for help. We always need help. We can't do everything by ourselves on our own. And sometimes we need others to help us figure things out. I hope I've helped. I hope you've learned something. And I really appreciate your time. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you. That was awesome. I took some really good tips out of that. Time management is such an 800-pound gorilla in the room right now. Where there's definitely an overglorification of doing all the things all the time for all the people every single day of the week. So it's challenging setting those boundaries. So excellent tips. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about finding you?
They could give me a call. They can contact me through my calendar, and they can go to yourfreediscoverycall.com.
Okay. yourfreediscoverycall.com. That's
yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Haley.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Take
you're
care.
welcome.
Thank you. And we're going to swap people around. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. And thank you, Carol, for such an amazing presentation. I apologize for my dog deciding to bark under my desk right about now, because that is life and the world and the universe happening at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And one of the things I was going to talk about today is actually going to dovetail to Carol. Burnout is a real thing with entrepreneurs. There's two mindsets and two schools of thought that I see coming up a lot in business, or a lot, at least from a marketing perspective. And neither one of them is terribly healthy. The first one is the work 23 hours a day, do everything, do it all the time, be on every single social media platform, go to 23,000 networking meetings a week, follow up with 200 people, and do all of these things. And unfortunately, 23 hours a day is going to lead to rapid burnout, and is going to lead to not being able to take care of yourself and your family. Because most of us that have businesses, at least those of us that are women, have a dog, a cat, kids, parents, a life partner that we are taking care of, and a household, and those expectations that go with all of those things in our lives while we're still trying to manage a business. The other school of thought I see going around, which I think is almost just as harmful, is the myth of the 4-hour work week. Now, I want to say that it is possible to have a 4-hour work week if you hire enough people, put enough resources in, and hire enough things out in your business. But the reality with that is that you have to have the money to hire all of those things out. And for a young fledgling business, especially if you're in that early stages of getting clients, it's really, really hard to balance the money coming in with the money going out if you're hiring every single thing in your business out. So there's a balance between the two of hiring what you're worth and hiring the things that make the most sense with doing the work yourself. So burnout is a real thing. Let me know in the comments if you have ever felt burned out, frazzled, exhausted, too tired. Exhaustipated is another really good word that I've heard people describe it with. I've seen women who have driven themselves straight into adrenal fatigue. Men too, because we work too many hours a day. We don't focus enough on the self-care pieces. We don't focus enough on the spiritual care pieces and on our physical bodies in order to move things forward in our lives, in our businesses, while still having ourselves. I've heard it said from other people that have been in business for a long time, if you don't take care of yourself, there won't be a business. And I'm a big advocate of that. One of the things that happened to me early on in my business was that I gained a ton of weight because I didn't really care about what I was eating or how I was eating or when I was eating. If the kids were eating, so was I. Whatever the kids were eating, so was I. Whatever was fast, whatever was easy, whatever was convenient was fast food, macaroni and cheese, lots of pizza, and you guys can probably guess where that went. And, you know, so many times I found myself putting my kids, my family, everybody else ahead of me in the needs, and still focusing on growing my business. And the cool thing was that I actually saw my business grow by leaps and bounds. I saw Women's Entrepreneur Network grow, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 members, 25, 30. And as it was growing, I was, putting 1,000,000 hours a day in and gaining weight and feeling awful on the inside. My joints were aching. I could hardly walk to the end of the cul-de-sac. And, things were really rough on me physically. I realized that something was going to have to change when I had an umbilical hernia pop up or pop out. And the doctor looked at me and said, if you continue down this path, you're going to die. I don't know how many of us have heard that from a doctor. If you continue down this path, you are going to die, because this is a really bad path to be on. And that was a huge awakening for me. Businesses don't just grow themselves. It's really hard to have enough money to throw in to pay somebody to do every single little aspect in the business so that you can do the 3-hour work week. And working 23 hours a day and not focusing on myself no longer was an option. So what's a girl to do? I learned that self-care is not selfish care. I'm still learning boundaries. And thank you, Carol, for some awesome suggestions for boundaries. I learned that a schedule is important. Blocking time for meals with my family, learning how to cook new things. One of the big challenges I had was that my mom, growing up, was a really awful cook. She used to make porcupine meatballs, which are meatballs that have rice in them, and then they're rolled in rice, and then they're baked in the oven. Only she didn't do it with cooked rice. She did it with raw rice, so they came out crunchy. And other wonderful, amazing culinary delights. And if my mom found something that the family would tolerate, like meatloaf, we would eat it 6 nights in a row. So I didn't really learn how to cook from my mom. My mother was a wonderful person. She was an amazing artist. Amazing things she did. Cooking was not one of those skills. So needless to say, I didn't really learn those skills either, because I didn't have a mother or a parent who taught me. And my dad was a great cook, but he was working full time to take care of the family, as was, I think, pretty common back in those days. So I had to learn cooking. I had to learn different styles of food. I had to learn what my family was going to actually eat. And, setting time boundaries, setting those time blocks, those schedules, and really focusing on what am I eating? How am I eating? How often am I eating? When am I sleeping? How often am I exercising? Am I doing all these things? And making sure that I was prioritizing the spiritual care, the physical care, the care of my relationship with my husband around this whole business idea. And I had to prioritize my physical care over my children's care. And in the background, I have a child who had a traumatic brain injury from a fall from a horse 6 years ago. So we've been dealing with a lot of hospitalizations. Learning that in order to take care of her, in order to take care of everybody else, I had to come first. In order to take care of the business and make money, I had to take care of myself first. And this probably all sounds really counterintuitive. What I saw once I started blocking that time in my calendar was that I had a limited amount of time per day to actually get work done, and a limited budget. I had to figure out what things were going to be the most important. I had to figure out the things that were going to yield a result the fastest in the least amount of time, that made the most sense for me and my business, not following somebody else's 3-step process, and making sure that it all worked. And that it was going to work for me with the time that I had available, and making sure that it was all feasible and possible. Was it easy? Absolutely not. I still get a lot of people who will request meetings during what is my dinner time. I'm on the East Coast. People on the West Coast are frequently doing afternoon meetings right in the middle of my family's dinner time. So I have to decline networking meetings that happen out on the West Coast that are during my normal meal times. I can't set scheduled appointments with clients during my family's dinner time because I cook dinner now. And I do that almost every single night. And it's important to myself, to my own sanity, to my physical care, to my mental care to do that. And I recognize that when I allow things to start creeping in along the boundaries that I've set, that it's not just one little thing, it's one thing and then another, and then another, and then another. Because see, once we start breaking our own boundaries, once we do it the first time, it's easy to keep doing them. I learned that there was absolutely no glamour in destroying myself for a business because honestly, I love you guys, but y'all aren't going to care that I managed to destroy myself in the process of trying to do something. What it's going to matter to is to me and to my family the most. I had to get really real with what was going to matter the most. Ultimately, at the end of the day, get my priorities straight, get my head straight, figure out what things needed to happen and when they needed to happen. I learned that there was absolutely no glamour in burnout. I learned the hard way that I was going to have to do every single aspect of my business and I was going to have to be smart with doing it. That I was going to need to have to be able to learn every single aspect of my business because my primary business is doing digital marketing. I have to be able to step in at any moment in time for any single one of my contractors and team members and make sure that I can do whatever they were doing in order to keep moving the business forward. People get sick. Sometimes somebody half does a job and I have to finish it, but I need to be able to tell if that's been done or not done. I had to learn to take 100% ownership of every single aspect of my life, whether it was easy or not. And in fact, I would dare say it was more not overall than easy. Because I had to learn to love to do the things that I don't like to do. I had to learn to love QuickBooks. I had to learn to love accounting. Y'all, when I did my MBA at Duke, that accounting class mopped the floor with me. That professor was the professor who literally wrote the book. It was not my favorite class. Financial and managerial accounting were two of the classes that I liked the least and that I have had to learn to love the most. I've had to learn to focus on every single aspect of my business and accept that I am the one who's going to be taking out the trash and sometimes writing the emails and seeing what we're doing and figuring out the strategy, because at the end of the day, everybody in my business is looking at me to fix the problem, make the decisions, act decisively, and do all of the things. And it is very important that I do that and that I take absolute responsibility for every single thing in my business. That also means every single thing in my personal life. Can't control my children. I can't control my husband, but I can absolutely control where my mind is going, what I'm doing with my body, what I'm putting in my body, and how I'm treating my body physically, mentally, spiritually, in every single aspect. So with that said, if you burn yourself out, there won't be a business. I can talk about hardcore marketing stuff and MBA stuff. And heck, we could talk about financial and managerial accounting all day long if you want to. We can talk about how to figure out the cost of a widget. But at the end of the day, if you burn yourself out, we won't be able to talk about those things. Thank y'all for joining me. I would love to introduce our next speaker. It is Susan Erickson. Susan, I am so happy to have you here joining me today, and so glad that you are one of our speakers. And I'm hoping that my talk today was a lovely bridge between Carol and you. So I hope I have set the stage for you, my friend. Welcome, and I yield the stage.
Well, absolutely, Haley. And thank you. I am both blessed and honored to be here. So thank you very much for that. And yes, you absolutely set the stage for what I wanted to talk about today. And as you said, the control that we have, what we have control over, that we take responsibility for, and then releasing those things that we don't have control over, right? That we're not here to fix it for everybody, to fix it all, but we are here to do what we can do with the things that we have at that point in time, right? And make the decisions with the information that we have. We make the best decisions we can at that point in time. And what I'd really like to talk about today is abundance in our personal life and in our businesses. And what does that look like, right? What is that for us? What is what is abundance for us? What does it mean for us personally, and what does it mean for us professionally? Well, so if you look at the word abundance, the definition of that is that it's ample of whatever it is, ample supply. It might be, and it's also identified as wealth. So when it's in the financial field, abundance is wealth, it's money, right? And we often jump straight to that. However, abundance really is in all areas of our life, right? It is absolutely our wealth, our financial abundance, but it's also in our health. It's in our relationships. It's in our profession and our business, and it's in our spirituality. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? Well, it's kind of cliche to say, but it's different for each one of us, right? And it might even be different at different points in time for us, right? So abundance for me when I was 20 looks really different than abundance does for me now. I had different priorities. I had different lifestyle. I had 3 little ones. And, we just had a very different point in life. And so abundance at that point looked different. And abundance for based on where you live, based on what you do, all of those things come into play when we say, what does abundance mean? And what does it mean for you? Oftentimes when I ask that question, I'll hear from people that it's freedom, right? Especially when you're talking about wealth. Abundance is freedom. It means that I have the freedom to do what I want and come and go when I want and to buy what I want, when I want. And so I just invite you to pause a moment and think about that. If you have a lot of money, what you would consider a lot of money, maybe you're a millionaire, do you really still have freedom, right? Or does that come at a cost in something else, right? Is that a cost in time, right? Because you're tied to what you need to do in order to continue that. Are you tied in your relationships? Because maybe now people see you differently based on the money that you have, or maybe they're viewing those relationships on a money basis versus on a personal basis. Maybe they're not. Maybe you're using that money in the opposite direction, right? I don't want to be rich because then I have to give up my time. I have to give up my relationships. Is that true too? Really? No. Can I have abundance in all areas? Yes. Yes, you can. And how do you do that? Right? Well, I'm going to invite you to just consider for a moment, if you're living your values and you're aligned with your purpose and you acknowledge your voice, you acknowledge and stand in that power, you're going to be able to live in abundance for you. So when you consider what are your values, and those are the things that are like the line in the sand, right? What is the line in the sand for you? Is it honesty, integrity, joy? Is it consistency? Is it perseverance? There's a whole pages and pages of different values. And so I invite you just to consider, what are those values for you right now? And then to also think for a moment, are these the same values for my whole entire life? Or again, did my values look different when I was younger? Will my values look different when I'm older? And am I able to live those values every day? Right? If one of my values is integrity and being true to myself, if I'm required to do something that doesn't feel true to myself, doesn't feel true and honest to what I believe, then having that happen once is certainly not going to throw us totally off track, although we're going to definitely feel that. But if we're required to do that day after day, it is absolutely going to get in our way of living abundantly. And when I say if we're required to do that, that's always a choice, right? And you'll hear that oftentimes people will say that I don't have a choice, right? What that means is I don't like the opposite decision that I have to make. And like Haley was just talking about that, right? Like I have the responsibility for my own health, for my own business, for how I feel every day. I have the responsibility for that. I have the responsibility for my own education, for my own belief system. And so sometimes I'll hear people say things like, I don't have a choice. I have small children. I can't go back to school. I can't do that job at this point because I have X, Y, and Z. And what they really mean by that is, I don't like what I have to give up on the other side of that, right? So I'm going to use that going back to school, for example. If you're a mom with young kids and you need to get a certification or a degree or something to be able to move forward in your job or your career, and you don't want to miss their games. You want to be there at night to tuck them in. You want to be there to help them with their homework. That is absolutely a choice that you are making. And that's okay. But just acknowledge that it's a choice that you have and that it is a choice that you are making. And that makes so much difference in how you show up. If you believe you have a choice in showing up to help your child do their homework, how much differently do you show up than this is something I have to do and I can't do what's fulfilling to me because I have to do this? Well, again, that's not true. There are other ways for that to happen. There are plenty of children that don't have their parents there to tuck them in at night, and they still do perfectly well. They're still well-balanced, lovely children, right? So there are other ways for that to happen, but then you have to do something differently, and you have to change. So are you willing to do that? Are you willing to make a change? Are you willing to live with the consequences of whatever that change is? Maybe that consequence of that is, I don't get that promotion, or I don't get to, get a different job, or I don't get to get a certification, whatever it is. I don't get to do that right now because I'm choosing this instead. And again, it's perfectly okay. Acknowledge, though, that it is your choice and that it is a decision that you made and that it is aligned with your values, right? So make sure that that choice that you are making is aligned with your values, whatever they are for you. So the second, for your values and at that point in your life, right? So again, what my values were when I had young children and what they are now when my children are all grown and careers and lives of their own, is going to look different. And that's okay too. But that's why it's important to stop and consider those and be very intentional about them as we go along throughout our life. So the next thing that I would invite you to consider is, are you aligned with your purpose? And, then I often hear, well, how do I know what my purpose is, right? How do I know what I'm supposed to do? And we try really, really hard to figure that out, right? Especially when you're younger, or maybe we're middle-aged or older, right? I love how many people are starting things as a second career or second stage of life, right? Especially I'm in the second stage of life, right? I love how that happens. I did that myself, but are you aligned with your purpose? And what is your purpose? How do you know that, right? Well, oftentimes, again, I think we just put too much pressure on that we will know our purpose if we just stop and think about it. It's the things that we're good at. It's the things people tell us we're good at, right? It's the things that come to us naturally, and where you might be really good at something and we don't even realize that it's hard for other people, right? Because it's always been kind of easy for us. And I'm going to give you a couple examples from my own life. When I went into coaching, I had a long career in healthcare and leadership positions. And then I stumbled across this thing called coaching, life coaching. And I was just amazed at it, and I was thrilled by it. And I was like, this is this amazing thing, and it can help so many people. And I tried to talk all these people into my life, into doing this. Like, gosh, this would be a great, career for you. You should go. And they kept saying to me, no, you need to go do this. No, you need to go do this. And I'm finally like, well, okay, I guess I just need to take that step, and I need to go do that. And the other thing that really, and I still remember this because it struck me really, that those things that come easy to us don't come easy to everyone, right? So I've always worked, as I mentioned, in leadership positions, COO, managing clinics, etc. And so I always worked with budgets. I always worked with the numbers and the budgets, as well as coaching other people, which is the part that I enjoy. But working with those budgets and those numbers, really not the detail piece of that, but the analytical piece of that always came pretty easy to me. And I never realized that until I was helping my daughter set up her own business. And I set up a spreadsheet for her and I sent it to her. And she called me with all these questions. And I'm like, well, you just do this, this, and this. And she's like, Mom, you don't understand. My brain doesn't think like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I just thought everybody's brain thought like that. So being really open and intentional about those things that are coming to you, right? That are offered to you. Those things, they aren't always there for a reason. If there's something laid at your doorstep, if there's somebody that asks you to do something, please do your due diligence on it. I'm not saying that at all. Do your due diligence. Is it aligned with your values? Is it your purpose? Is it aligned with your purpose, right? Those two things are really major. And if it is, then you have to consider, why would you not do it? And you need to take a step in that direction. And then thirdly, to acknowledge and stand in our power. That might sound, fairly simple, or it might sound really overwhelming depending on who you are. So to have your voice, to recognize your voice, and to acknowledge it and stand up for yourself can be, I'm going to say, more challenging. It's been my experience, it's more challenging for women than it is for men. And it's more challenging for different cultures than it is for us. It's more challenging for people of different ethnic backgrounds because of how they're treated or because of how they've grown up. So there's a lot of reasons for that. But for us to be able to do that, it doesn't mean that we're loud and we're belligerent and we're standing on a soapbox and making everybody believe what we believe. What it means is that we know our value, we know our worth, and we are willing to stand up and say that and acknowledge that. And we are willing to share that with the rest of the world, right? Because we all have those talents. We all have those gifts that we have been given. And we all have the ability to share that with the world. And if we don't, then somebody else is not hearing the message that we were called here to share with others. Whether that's a message of building something with your hands, whether that's a message of using your actual voice to speak and be a speaker, whether that's using your voice to help others with their budget or to help others get aligned with their purpose, whether that's whatever that looks like, to use your voice to do that. Because if you don't, you might identify your purpose, but you're not living it. Right? You're not living the values. You're not living aligned if you're not truly using your voice and standing in your power. So those are the three things that lead to our most abundant lives and living our life abundantly. And those three things show up for us personally, and they show up for us in our business. And so I love interactive rooms, and we don't really have that potential here, but I would love to hear from anybody in the chat, or for you to share that, what abundance means for you. As I said, it's different for each and every one of us. So what it means for you, and then maybe what are some of the things that you have done personally in your own life that you have seen that worked for you. Because again, that's sharing our voice, right? And how we share that with others. So I look really forward to hearing from you, and living our most abundant lives in all of those areas, right? Whether it's in our financial, it's in our health, it's in our spirituality, it's in our relationships, it's in our mental health, and it's in our business and career. And if we bring those three things to all of that, then it's all synchronized, it all works together, and we're all able to live our most abundant lives, which I fully believe then helps everybody else live their most abundant lives. Because when we're living at our highest vibration, that just lifts up the vibration of everyone around us, right? So when you think about how you show up in a room, if you walk into a room, so I'm going to give you an example. You walk into a room like this, right? You're going to get a way different reaction than if you walk into a room and you're fully confident and you're fully comfortable with who you are. You're going to get a way different reaction, and you're going to get a way different buy-in to the things that you're doing and the things that you are helping others do and the people that you are serving. They know then that you are living your most abundant life. You're not living your most abundant life if you walk in like this and your energy is down and your vibration is low. It's when you're walking in like this. And that then gives everyone else permission to live their most abundant lives and helps them reach their highest vibration. So I thank you all for your time today. I thank Haley for allowing us this stage to be on, to share our talents, our gifts with all of the rest of you. And I really look forward to hearing from everyone as we have some time going forward. And Tish says, I have been told I enter a room like Kramer from Seinfeld. I love that. He's got all over the place, huh? That's a really good visual when you think about it too, right? Kramer from Seinfeld. Most of you, I think, probably all know who that is. So you can get a real visual from that. And that's a really good way to do it as well. If you want to think about, just pause for a moment before you walk into a room and think about, maybe you need to call on a visual image of somebody in your life. Maybe it's somebody you know personally, or maybe it's somebody, maybe it's a professional athlete or actor, or maybe it's a head of state. Maybe it's Nelson Mandela. Maybe it's Mother Teresa. When I'm living in present time, life is full and abundant. Yes, absolutely, Carol. Living fully present in the moment, fully present in time, right? So that we have that ability to share that with others as well. Absolutely. So that is a big piece of being able to live abundantly, is living presently in the moment. Not in the past, not in the future, but present in the moment. And when I say that, that doesn't mean we don't plan, right? Oftentimes, and I am a planner. I have to admit that I am a planner. And I think when we say, "Oh, I don't plan, I don't budget because I live in the moment," I don't believe that planning and budgeting prevents us from living in the moment. It helps us envision the future and where we're going, but we have to be present enough in the moment to be flexible, to make the changes that we need, to be available to those things that come to us, to be receptive, open and receptive to the things that are presented to us, and to be able to make the most of what those are, right? To be able to live in abundance in that moment. So thank you so much for for that, Carol. I really appreciate you bringing that. And Tish, I love that visual of Kramer walking into the room. So think about who you want to show up as when you walk into a room. How do you want people to see you? And just pause for a moment. Align yourself. Take a deep breath. Make sure you are in that vibration, that you are living that, and show up that way when you walk into the room, when you greet others, and when you have conversations. And if you're a speaker, absolutely make sure you show up that way on the stage, right? So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for, I'm honored and blessed again to be here today. And I hope you all have an abundant rest of your day and rest of your week. And thank you so much, Haley.
Thank you, Susan. How does somebody find you?
Oh, well, thank you so much. So I'm under Susan Erickson Coaching, and I keep it very simple. Everything is under Susan Erickson Coaching on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a clubhouse at Susan Abundantly. I also am on LinkedIn and Alignable. And I'd love to have a conversation with any of you and schedule a little coffee chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for a wonderful topic today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Especially in my neck of the woods, it is 40s and raining, and it's supposed to drizzle and sleet all night and snow. And then we're supposed to get up to 5 inches, I think, tomorrow. So
yeah. And that's one of the things we have no control over, right? Is the weather. Absolutely. We have no control over the weather. And it's 7 degrees here today is our high. So yeah, I get it. However, I try to find what is it that I hate cold weather. I really do. But how might I shift that a little bit? And it is beautifully sunny here today. I will say that. It's gorgeous sun and bright blue skies, and which is, of course, helping keep the frigid temperatures. But
yeah.
I do feel for you, and I'm so sorry that you're having the freezing rain and the snow. But maybe you can make some of that.
Yeah, no, my body wants to think that I'm part polar bear and wants to go hibernate today.
I know. Yep. A little hot chocolate, a little hot tea, a good book. Yeah.
Yep. And then I am ready for, an hour's long nap. Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay. And we are going to move on to our next speaker, Shanna. If you can turn on your camera and your microphone. That would be absolutely wonderful. I am so excited to invite you to the stage and hand over the stage to you. Welcome. I am so happy to have you here. Welcome, Shanna.
Thank you, Haley. I am excited to just be part of the group and to just kind of share my story. I love uplifting women and just the sisterhood of women entrepreneurs. So I live in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I'm a new entrepreneur. I quickly realized that corporate was not for me. It didn't align with my integrity. And so I felt I needed to do better. I needed to be better. So within 3 weeks of quitting my corporate job, I started my company on a whim. We all know how hard entrepreneuring can be, but it's especially hard when we don't feel like we have the support of a staff or coworkers, and we don't have someone to bounce ideas off. So I would like to talk today about something that I have implemented in my life. So I encourage you right now to grab a piece of paper and your favorite pen and write down your answers as I talk and ask you questions. So while you guys are doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I did recently. I implemented a advisor group, and what that did for me was it gave me my sounding board. It gave me my staff. It gave me my advisors that I was missing in my business, and really did help prolong me or move me along to where I am now and the confidence I have. So in the recent passing of our dear friend Betty White, I thought about the Golden Girls, and I thought, what a great group of friends. I asked myself, why can't I have my own Golden Girls? Come on, think about it. Wouldn't it be great to have all the Golden Girls as your own personal advisors? I mean, they're hilarious, they're funny, they're amazing. And I thought it was a good idea because all the ladies, they came from different backgrounds, different work experiences. They had their own special values, their own opinions. But one thing that they did have in common was sisterhood. They generally loved each other and they wanted the best for each other. So when I started forming my own Golden Girls, I found that breaking down each of their characteristics was a really good way to measure of who and what I needed in my life. So we're going to go and look at all of the Golden Girls, and I'm going to ask you some questions. So please feel free to write down names, characteristics, or other things that pop in your head that you could possibly use when you are creating your advisor board. First, we have Sophia, the surrogate mom of the house. Many of the women would go to her for her life advice, her years of wisdom, and even sometimes her snarky remarks. She tells it like it is, and she's steady, and she just has such a deep connection to family roots and traditions. Who do you go for advice? Because they've been there and they've done that. Is there someone that you can trust to tell you like it is and that can help you be accountable? Is there someone you can learn by example and have a continued source of a non-judgmental guidance? Sophia's daughter, Dorothy, she is determined and protective. She's a fierce leader who stands up for what she believes in. She encourages education and she's driven by logic. She will help you celebrate in all your hard work and effort. Here, when you look at somebody like Dorothy, you'll want to look for somebody who takes pride in their accomplishments and their hard work. Is there someone that you know that will encourage you to do better, to be better, to encourage you to educate yourself and to experience different things in your life? So do you have somebody that is just full of logic? Once you sit down and you talk things out, it just all makes sense. That's your Dorothy. And in life, sometimes it calls for us to be daring. In doing this today, I had to bring out my inner Blanche and just be spontaneous and have the courage to do it because I was really nervous. And Blanche, she's just so full of energy. She is spontaneous, but she'll hold your hand when you need courage. She's sassy, she's carefree, and she gives all the ladies permission in the house to be a little bit daring, be able to step out of their comfort zone. And this advisor, you will want to look for somebody who will bring fun and a belly full of laughs. Do you have someone who will push you outside your comfort zone? And while pushing you outside your comfort zone, will be right there when you need someone to hold your hand. Is there someone who you feel safe to try new things with and to fail? Is there someone who has a little more sass than you and can help you be just a little more carefree? Who's your Blanche? And then there's Rose. She is funny and she's kind and she's always optimistic. She lets the ladies of the house be vulnerable by creating a safe place in their friendship. And she wholeheartedly wants the best for all of her friends. She's so genuine. In my opinion, if she were to be a Care Bear, she would be Sunshine Bear. So who is your Sunshine Bear? Who in your life always makes you smile and feel good about yourself? Is there someone who, when they come in the room, they just light it up? Ask yourself who helps you see the good in you. If you wrote any names down, then those are your golden girls. So now that you have your golden girls, how do you ask them to be part of your advisory board? Yes, I know. It's weird. It's a weird question. It's awkward. I get it. But here's a thought. Maybe they are also looking for someone to be on their advisory board, but they just didn't know how to ask. So I would say be like Dorothy or Rose. Tell those Dorothys that you need their strength, their determination, and their straightforward advice, and you need them. For the Roses, you could ask them if they'd be willing to sit down and have a one-to-one with you, listen to you, and you'd want them on your advisory board because you do value their advice and they have a very sunny way of seeing things and it can help lift your spirits. I know that having a group of supporters like that for me has brought me comfort and confidence in my professional life, along with my personal life. I just know that when I fall, those group of girls, my golden girls, they'll be there to pick me up and give me a glass of wine. When I succeed, I know that they will be there to celebrate with me and hand me a glass of wine. When I go bonkers, they will know how to settle me down with a glass of wine. So I hope that when you listen to this, you can find some value in my suggestions. Being an entrepreneur can be lonely, but you have support. You just have to ask for it. And then remind them to bring you the wine. So thank you for being a friend and listening to me. I'm Shayna from Appleton, Wisconsin, reminding you to channel your inner golden girl. And as Rose says, the older you get, the better you get, unless you're a banana. In choosing my advisory board, I am able to use them as a reference to keep myself directed, grounded. They help me move to the next level and achieve goals, helps me set goals. And then I, in return, do the same for them. And I think that's really valuable because I feel in this life time right now, we as women need to support each other. Women need to see women succeed. And we can only do that is if we are surrounded by women who have alike minds. So I encourage you guys to go and find your golden girls. Surround yourself with the different personalities, the different walks of life, and different advisors that can help you grow personally and professionally. And then in doing so, you can help them by offering the same service, by saying, hey, friend, I'm going to be there for you when you fall with a glass of wine. I am going to be there for you when you are so excited about so many different things, but then you may have lost sight of where your direction was. I really hope that you guys can find that group of core girls or advisors that you can count on and rely on. Because I know for me, it has been such a relief to be able to feel confident and know that the support is there. A lot of us have a partner who may not be in the same industry as us. And as excited as they are for us, they just might not get it. So when we surround ourselves with like-minded people, we're able to celebrate with each other and for each other. And that makes a world of difference in the lonely world of being an entrepreneur. But again, like I said, it doesn't have to be lonely. We're all in this together. You just have to ask. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you, Haley, for inviting me. I was super excited to be part of the group and the opportunity to chat with you guys today.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. How would somebody go about finding you and getting in touch with you, Shanna?
Sure. So right now I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And
Awesome.
I have a website that is at shakeupboring.com or Salt and Pepper Marketing.
Love it. So glad to have you here. Thank you for such an awesome presentation. I can't wait to hear more and see what you do going forward.
Thank you very much.
And don't forget the wine.
And don't forget the wine.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And now we are adding my dear friend, Patty. Welcome. I am so happy to have you here today as a speaker and as a presenter. And I know I have twisted your arm terribly.
Well, you know I'm a millennial, so that phrase, twisted your arm.
I know, I'm such a bully. I can't wait to hear what you have to present. Patty, the stage is yours.
Yes. So being a part of your circle gets me in trouble. Okay. Today I am going to talk about how sports psychology fits into your children's athletic future, what part it plays in getting an athletic scholarship in order to turn pro. Okay, so I am a sports mental performance coach consultant. I put athletes in the best position to get an athletic scholarship for college in order to go pro by addressing the factors related to your athlete's performance. With your athlete's performance, the things that can prevent them from winning more, achieving their dreams, overtraining, burnout, injury. But the bigger challenge is keeping them in sports long term and keeping sports fun and enjoyable. At the age when your child is supposed to get serious about college sports and the opportunity whether or not to go for an athletic scholarship or not, unfortunately, is the time when most athletes drop out of competitive sports before they even seriously give themselves a chance. 70% drop out of competitive sports by the time they reach the teenager year of the age at the early age of 13. 70% drop off because of burnout. And a major reason that they give is sports is no longer fun and enjoyable, too much pressure. So that's where sports psychology comes in. We We prevent athletes from experiencing burnout, overtraining, injury, and we help them stay in sports long term by keeping them motivated, confident, focused, and making sure that they talk to themselves nicely as they would anyone else, because athletes unfortunately develop the habit of beating up themselves after making one mistake instead of making up for it by looking forward to the next play and performing better. They beat themselves up until the end of the game, and by the time they get it back at the end of the game, it is too little too late. So basically, in sports psychology, we focus on the different factors of your athlete's performance. Your child's athletic performance is a combination of physical and mental. And parents, you all have done a great job in addressing your child's physical needs by hiring them a sports skills coach, enrolling them in travel ball, hiring them a personal trainer, and hiring them a nutritionist. However, you all have neglected the mental side of sports, and that's also a number of factors that play into your athlete's athletic performance. Like I previously mentioned before, it's motivation, it's confidence, it's self-talk, it's focus, making practice as game realistic as possible, habits and routines. All of those factors play into your child's athletic performance. The goal is to get them to the point on game day where they feel as calm as possible with as little stress as possible, and keep their performance anxiety down. A little bit of performance anxiety helps your child prepare for game day. It's actually a good thing because it'll make sure that they'll put in some extra work to make sure that they feel prepared. But however, when it gets to be too much, it negatively impacts their athletic performance. So the goal is to get them to focus on the right things rather than focusing on winning. We get them to focus on preparation, what they need to do to get to where they need to be on game day, what are the tasks that they need to do in order to get to where they want to be, achieve the desired outcome on game day, and not just pay attention to winning. Paying attention to only winning and winning without putting in the work doesn't get the athletes anywhere besides putting a ton of pressure on themselves. We want to keep the pressures of competitive sports as low as possible. And by the pressures of competitive sports, I mean the pressure to win, the pressure to balance school and sports, which is a parent's favorite one, the pressure to meet your parents' and coaches' expectations, and the pressure to replicate a great performance over and over again. We decrease those pressures so that your athletes would be in top shape to perform well on game day, and don't underestimate what happens the day before game day and the things you all do as part of your preparation. Simply not getting a good night's sleep for your athlete can lead to them performing poorly the next day on game day, because at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep helps your athletes recover physically and mentally from whatever was going on the day before, whether it was another game or another practice, or whether they just have school. Rest and recovery is not an optional thing. They must do it so that they can stay in sports long term and perform at their best on game day when it counts. Oftentimes, athletes get themselves in trouble when they only think of getting recovery and rest is just sleep. And by quality rest, I don't mean just sleep. What goes on in proper preparation is not only getting a good night's sleep. They must take breaks away from sports, have them some me time, regardless of how little of it is. Me time is necessary for the athletes during the week where they get to do non-sports related activities, because oftentimes the athletes that we work with, they get themselves in trouble when they only focusing on activities related to sports. So make sure that you give your kids some times to just be kids. And that could be a major factor in whether or not your children ends up achieving their athletic dreams. So where do parents fit in to this? Well, parents, your role is to be their biggest cheerleader. Remember that they are your child, regardless if it's after a good game or a bad game. Your role is to be their biggest cheerleader, to avoid coaching them. I mean, the best way that your kids are going to quit sports early is by you coaching them, because with parents' investments, kids have a larger coaching staff than what they ever had in the past. So they have plenty of coaches. You don't need to be another coach. Your job is to be their biggest cheerleader. Remember, they are your boy or your girl, regardless whether or not they have a good or a bad game. And sometimes y'all have got to be wondering, is your biggest issue that you're just mom or you're just dad? And it is, because from your athlete's point of view, the reason why coaching them does not work is that from your athlete's point of view, you know nothing about sports. You don't know anything. You don't know what I'm going through. Therefore you feel like you haven't been heard. That is the reason. You are just mom or just dad to them. So your best bet for your athletes to achieve their dreams is to just attend their games and be their biggest cheerleaders. The different types of stress that athletes face are personal, athletics, and school. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Good stress is any stress that helps your athletes improve their athletic performance. Bad stress is stress that negatively impacts your athlete's performance. Ugly is when something goes wrong in their personal lives. For example, they might have just gone through a bad breakup or losing a family member. And on top of that, with athletic stress, they are not playing well. They might be experiencing a few bad games, a slump, an issue on the team, losing the starting role position, getting benched, or not getting along with teammates. And on top of that, they are not performing well in school. So all three different categories of stress turns into ugly when all three categories of stress are negatively impacting an athlete's performance, regardless of whether or not they deny it or admit it. So where does sports psychology fit in? The techniques that we use to help your athletes with routines and habits hopefully will keep the stress minimal, and these techniques can also be applied to help them perform better in school. Don't underestimate what a few tweaks in the habits and routines where a negative habit which negatively impacts your athlete's performance, and where negative routines, which is basically a negative routine, it's just basically a series of negative habits, where tweaking them, making changes, and turning them into positive habits can really help your athletes put on their best performances in school and on the field, on the court, on the golf course, in the field. And those techniques can also be applied when, and later on in high school, the homework load and the test load increase. They can really use those same techniques to squeeze in more sleep per day, to squeeze in more me time during the day, and to help them perform better on tests when it counts, when majority of your grades are based on tests later on in high school and in college. So, and it goes into overtraining and burnout and fear of failure, because the fear of failure impacts an athlete's ability to put on their peak performance or their best performance, because people that I have talked to in the past seem to resonate more with the term best performance, and they find it tougher to understand the meaning of peak performance. So maybe I should use their best performance. How does that all factor in? Because school also kind of leads to burnout as well, because with standardized tests, the pressure to do well on homework and on exams factor into burnout, because your athletes are not getting the amount of sleep that is necessary, especially later on in high school. The fear of failure, the fear of not doing well on tests is the same as not doing well in a game. They try to control. When athletes fear failure, what happens is that their confidence is negatively impacted. They fear failure because it's self-doubt. So in trying to not to fail, they try to control the outcome, which is something that they can't control, and and instead of trying to play freely, they hesitate. They remember the times when they have not made a basket, not converted on a putt, missed a crucial free throw that count, or made another mistake during crunch time, and they forget about their success, which is what fear of failure and the self-doubt comes in with, where they don't believe in their ability to maintain success and continue success, and they fear failure. They start hesitating. They try to control the outcome rather than to just let it happen. And the fear of failure can also lead to overtraining and burnout, because they want to put on their best performances on game day, and as a result, they overtrain by overworking their bodies, by working out too much, by practicing too much. And by the time they reach game day, they don't have enough gas left in the tank to perform well because they didn't allow their bodies to rest and recover. The difference between overtraining and burnout is that when an athlete is overtraining, the passion is still there. However, by the time they reach burnout, the problem is the passion, or most of the passion, I should say, is gone. They are no longer as in love with the game as they were in the past. Their work ethic has dropped. They could possibly be dealing with injuries that have negatively impacted their body. So they might have lost a step or two. They might not be as quick or as speedy, and their movement might not be as sharp. And by the time you reach burnout, it's a lot harder for athletes to recover than it is to prevent it. Yes, athletes have recovered from burnout and came back to their best and have stayed there. However, it's much easier to prevent it than it is to recover from it. Athletes, sports coaches, and parents get themselves in trouble for that reason when it comes to misunderstanding sports psychology. They only think of sports psychology when their athlete is performing poorly or in a slump, rather than think of sports psychology as a set of tools that they can use to help their athletes performance soar and maintain a high level of performance so that they can reach the top and stay at the top. Staying at the top also helps your athletes achieve their dreams of getting that athletic scholarship for college and or to go pro. However, we suggest that your athletes aim for academic, which is merit, and athletic scholarships, so that it could possibly compensate for what the athletic scholarship doesn't cover. We're not saying your athlete won't get a full ride, but it's still your safest and best bet to go for, and in your best interest to go for merit and athletic scholarship for college when your athletes are chasing their dreams. And the best time to do it is before your child goes to high school. It's important that the more planning you do before your child goes to high school on their athletic future, the better off you'll be. And why is it a benefit for young athletes to use sports psychology? It is much easier for athletes to break poor habits, poor routines, confidence becoming an issue at an early age. We see in parents of athletes groups all the time about parents saying that their kids are experiencing confidence issues by the time they are 10. It is much easier to overcome those obstacles of not being confident, breaking poor habits, breaking poor routines when your child is under less stress. At a younger age, your child is dealing with less stress. Why? Because the homework load is a lot less than when they reach high school, especially junior and senior year. You add on top of that college applications, standardized tests. It's much harder to break those habits when their workload and responsibilities increase. And when at that young age, when they're in sports, it also is less stress. Yes, winning is important. However, the environment is a lot less stressful during those times when they are in middle school and in sports. It becomes even more intense when they reach high school. So basically, I hope with this talk today that you all have a better understanding of what sports psychology is and what it isn't. Sports psychology is not sports therapy. People associate sports therapy assuming that it is something related to mental illness. A sports performance consultant / coach such as myself, I do not diagnose and treat mental health illnesses. People in my field might not necessarily work with athletes. However, I focus on working with athletes, and I focus on using sports psychology skills to improve their athletic performance. I do absolutely nothing with diagnosing and treating mental health illnesses. It doesn't matter if your athlete's sports are in season or not. It doesn't matter if it's COVID or not COVID, or if your athlete is injured or playing well. If they're playing well, then it makes my job easier. Parents, athletes, and sports coaches should not settle for well when deep down inside your athlete there is another layer of best performances that hasn't been covered.
Awesome. Thank you, Patty. And, it's interesting how these things also apply to the rest of our lives as well.
Yes.
The sports and the mindset and all the pieces and parts. Thank you so much for being here today and giving us this awesome presentation. It was great to listen to you. I appreciate it. How would somebody go find you online?
All my social media accounts are Driven to Peak Consulting, and my website, driventopeakconsulting.com.
Awesome. driventopeakconsulting.com. Thank you so much, Patty.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
All right. See you
Bye-bye.
later.
See you later. And welcome to our next speaker, Sandy. So happy to have you here.
It's so nice to see you today.
It is wonderful to see you. I am delighted to see you and hear you. And you are our last speaker. And with that, I'm going to give you the stage. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haley.
Take care.
Well, today, ladies, we are going to talk about obstacles. We're going to talk about obstacles. We're going to talk about energy. And we're going to talk about how we transfer our energy to those obstacles and can make them bigger obstacles. I can see that you can't see me. I've got light issues. Interesting. And then we are going to do a releasing exercise, a little meditation that you can utilize in your day at any point in your day when you brush up against things that you need to overcome. Because let's face it, we're in the Women's Entrepreneur Network, which means we're all entrepreneurs here trying to get things accomplished, trying to get things done. Most of us are probably trying to impact the world in a very positive way. And we need to be able to release those negative things and overcome obstacles and get moving on our day, right? So, what is an obstacle? It's so simple. An obstacle is just simply something that blocks our way. Let's see if I can get seen better. Sorry. An obstacle is when your technology gremlins don't allow your face to be seen because you have too much light coming in from the front. Not a big deal. Sorry. So, simply something that blocks, prevents, or hinders progress. Pretty straightforward, right? How many obstacles do you come across in a day? Lots, right? Just take a second and think about the obstacles in your day. It could be that the baby spit up on you when you were trying to get out the door. It could be that somebody pulled out in front of you and now wants to go 5 or 10 miles under the speed limit and you're already late for work. It could be that you live with a narcissist or you live with an alcoholic, and your ideas of what you want to get done in the day and their ideas of what they want you to get done in a day may not align. And so they may appear to be intentionally being an obstacle in your day. So many things. So just take a moment and identify what some of those are. And doing that allows you to know what's coming at you, right? Like, we all drive every day. We know somebody's going to pull out in front of you. We all know that somebody is going to inevitably get in front of you if you're late for work. There's some sort of weird thing associated with Murphy's Law that says all slow traffic will be in front of you when you're on your way to work if you're late. So, obstacles. Then let's talk a moment about energy. We're going to talk about 2 different types of energies today. The law of conservation of energy indicates that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted from one form to another. It can be transferred, right? Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. So when you come against that obstacle, whatever it is, are you converting your precious resource of energy over to that obstacle? Are you making that obstacle bigger and more powerful than it actually should be in your day? Right? We do it all the time, ladies. We do it all the time. We get frustrated, we get amped up, we get animated, we're waving hand gestures, we're screaming, we're yelling, we throw our briefcase, there's an old school term, throwing our briefcase or whatever it is on the floor, like, oh, now I gotta go change, the baby spit up, or, you know, I spilled my coffee on myself, and you get all animated and you transfer all that energy into something that should not be entitled to your energy. You are entitled to your energy. So let's talk about another type of energy briefly. Let's talk about the energy that we all function at. There are 7 levels of energy, and this is not woo-woo. It's not any of that. It's very straightforward. 7 levels of energy, and there are no bad levels of energy. Levels of 1 and 2, yes, they're catabolic. They increase your cortisol and they do some negative things to your body, but they also do some really positive things to your body. Like, they give you fight or flight. They give you energy. They give you the power to fight back. Levels 3 through 7 are anabolic. And the higher you get in your energy levels, the more access to solutions and ideas that you have. But if you're cruising through your day and you normally function, let's say, at a 4 or 5 range of energy, and you hit an obstacle, or an obstacle comes at you in some way, what frequently happens to us? Well, we get animated, like we just talked about, and we plummet our energy into levels 1 and 2, which are catabolic. And we lose that access to solution. However, we do fight back. But all of those things impact how you deal with those obstacles. So let me give you some examples. If you are normally at like a 3-4 level of energy and everything is going pretty smooth, you're progressing toward your goals, but something happens, your client calls and says, hey, we haven't received XYZ. Because what's one of the obstacles we're dealing with these days? Shipping, right? Supply chains. I don't have this. And maybe if you're at like a level 3, you're normally like, oh, let me check on that and let me get back to you. Or if you're functioning at a higher level and you're like, oh, there are no problems, there are only solutions. There are no obstacles, there are only opportunities, right? That's where we want to be. But we get hit with something and now we just dive down into a lower level of 1 or 2. And level 1, we're like, oh, why does this always happen to me? It's always my account. It's always my account that this happens to. Why is it only my accounts that these things happen to? Or you're at a level 2 where you're like, this sucks. I'm angry, but let's figure out where this is. Let's fight to get this here. I'm reading a note from Tish. Yes, very true. You can use those as an excuse to stop or slow down. But the energy that you're accessing in your day-to-day operating system for yourself, see if we can fix this lighting stuff, is going to determine how you cope with an obstacle, right? And those things are really important. You got to go and change your clothes, most likely, if the baby spit up, right? It's just something you got to do. You've got to go find wherever that shipment is that your client is waiting for. I know my husband deals with this a lot. He gets calls frequently, like, where is such and such? You see him every day, chalking stuff down. What you do with your energy matters. And that's why we're talking about this today. Because I want you to be able to stay even keel. I don't want you to drain yourself and to lose your power to take care of things. I don't want you to lose your power to take care of yourself. I want you to identify the obstacle, just state what it is, right? Just identify it. And then I want you to be able to move past it, move beyond it, which is why we're going to do an exercise here in just a minute. So when you come up on that event, I want you to identify it. And then I want you, hold on one second, I'm so sorry. I want you to identify it. And then I want you to picture yourself in the middle of a river, right? I want you to just picture yourself floating down the river in the middle. You can be floating on your own. You can be floating in a boat. You can be floating on a log. However, you're just in the middle of the river. And you come up, and as you're floating, you hit a big rock in the middle of the river. It's just there. What is that rock? It's simply an obstacle. It has stopped your forward progress for the moment. It's an obstacle. Now you can label that rock with whatever you just put on your list that I asked you to identify. Could be a coworker, could be a significant other, could be other vehicles on the road, could be time management, it could be tech gremlins. That's frequently an obstacle that I have is tech gremlins, but I am working on that. You come up against this rock and you bump up against it and now you're stuck. So just take a moment and breathe in and breathe out, identify it, and then I just want you to picture yourself floating around the rock, right? Just float around it. you can get back in the middle of the river once you get around it. But do that without transferring your energy to it. Don't make the rock more powerful than it is. Don't give that rock your precious energy resource. Maintain that for you. Maintain that for your operating system. Keep it within you. Don't lose it. And once you get back in the middle of the river and you're floating, what I want you to do is I want you to clench your fists really, really, really tight and picture that obstacle in your hand as you're floating, because I don't want you to look back at the rock, and this is how we're going to do it. You're going to clench super tight and you're going to breathe in with all you have, and you're going to think of that obstacle, and then you're going to let out all of your air all at once with a big sigh, and you're going to release your hands, and you're going to release that obstacle that you floated by, so that you're not looking back and you're not picking it back up and you're not re-engaging with it to give it your energy. So tighten your fists and release. Do it again with me. And one more time. Feel better? I know I do. And it's just, see, if I hold my hand like this, you guys can see me better. And mine is, in this moment, just the simple matter of lighting for whatever reason, right? It's not a big deal. We're still communicating. We're still connecting. But my body is reset from picturing myself floating around a rock, from clenching and releasing and letting it go. Now, what if you did that while you were in the car driving to work, even though you're late? How are you going to show up differently when you arrive at your destination? You're not going to be frazzled for that meeting. You're not going to have to think of excuses as to why you were late. You're not going to have to justify anything because you're not giving anything your energy. You're just simply stating, I'm late. I'm here. And now you have all of that energy to rely on in your day so that you can continue to be solution. You continue to show up powerfully for your clients, and you continue to be productive and produce the intended outcomes that you have for yourself for the day. And all of us want that. All of us are here making a difference and achieving amazing and wonderful things. And excuse me, I want to make sure that you always have that tool to go and fall back on and be able to always be calm and smooth sailing. Does that mean that you'll never transfer your energy into something? No. Like the other day, I'll give you an example. The other day, I physically pulled out in front of another vehicle. I couldn't see him. He was in that post of my vehicle, and my energy, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I felt so bad. I'm like, I wanted to pull over and apologize. But what happened is, as he drove by, he's all animated and he's flipping his arms around. He didn't flip me off, but he's like, like, why? And my energy went from, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, to like, whatever, dude, your problem, not mine, right? Our energy flips so fast. But if we continue to picture ourselves in the center of that river, and we just continue to be in flow, and we identify the things that get in our way without getting all worked up about it, we can float around it, and we can have smooth sailing in our day, and we can continue on. And I'm sorry, Haley, I do not know what my time is or how much time I have. I'm so sorry. I should have
You
said
are
my
good.
time.
You are
Okay,
almost
I'm like, am I?
exactly on time. That's amazing.
Yes.
You hit it without even trying it. How does somebody go about finding you?
The easiest way to find me is on Facebook. I am Freedom Crab Nation. And that's the best way.
The best way to get it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for spending your time with us today. I am so glad that you chose to spend your time here. And I hope to hear from y'all again soon. And if you're interested in being one of our speakers for one of our other WEN-Talks, please get in touch with me or with Tish, and we will chat and see about getting you scheduled. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you, Sandy. We appreciate you and we love you all. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for us, Haley.